house like Martha Stewart was coming to judge it. I'd bought presents for everyone, including an entire collection of toys for Lucas, even though he was too young to play with most. What I'm about to tell you happened just 2 months ago, and I'm still processing the emotional whiplash of it all. My name is Linda Chen. I'm 61 years old, and for 7 years I believed my daughter Sarah had written me off forever over what she called the most insulting Christmas gift in history. 7 years of no phone calls, no visits, no contact with my only grandchild. 7 years of wondering how a mother could get something so wrong that her own daughter would choose to never speak to her again. 7 years of replaying that Christmas morning over and over, trying to understand what I'd done that was so unforgivable. But when Sarah called me 2 months ago, crying so hard I could barely understand her words, what she told me about what she'd found in my attic would reveal the most heartbreaking misunderstanding imaginable. A misunderstanding so profound that it didn't just explain why she'd been so hurt. It proved that sometimes the gifts that seem the most thoughtless are actually the most thoughtful of all. By the end of this story, you'll understand why assumptions can destroy families, and why the truth behind someone's actions might be completely different from what you think you see. Let me start from the beginning, because what happened 7 years ago on Christmas morning 2017 is still burned into my memory like it happened yesterday. Sarah was 28 at the time, married to her husband David, and they had just had their first baby, my grandson Lucas, who was 6 months old. This was going to be Lucas's first Christmas, and I was more excited about it than I'd been about any holiday in years. Sarah and I had always been close. After her father died when she was 15, it had been just the two of us for most of her teenage years. We'd gotten through high school together, college applications, her first heartbreak, her wedding planning. I thought we had the kind of mother-daughter relationship that could survive anything. That's why I was so excited about Christmas 2017. Sarah, David, and baby Lucas were coming to stay with me for 3 days over the holiday. I'd decorated the them, but I'd also bought something special for Sarah, something that I thought would mean the world to her, but that would end up destroying our relationship for 7 years. Let me give you some context about our family situation at the time, because it's important for understanding what happened next. David had just finished his medical residency, but he wasn't earning much money yet. Sarah had taken extended maternity leave from her job as a teacher, so they were living on one very small income while paying off massive student loans from David's medical school. They were living in a tiny apartment, struggling to make ends meet, and trying to figure out how to afford basic necessities for the baby. Sarah had mentioned to me several times that they were worried about money, that they were having trouble buying everything Lucas needed, that she felt guilty about not being able to give her son the kind of life she'd imagined. As a mother, watching your adult child struggle financially is one of the hardest things in the world. You want to help, but you also don't want to make them feel like failures or charity cases. You want to support them without making them feel dependent. I'd been quietly helping them out for months, sending grocery gift cards, buying baby clothes, and diapers when I came to visit, paying for their car repairs when their old Honda broke down. But I always tried to do it in ways that didn't make them feel like I was rescuing them. For Christmas, I wanted to give Sarah something that would really help their family, but also something that acknowledged how hard she was working to be a good mother under difficult circumstances. So I spent weeks planning what I thought was the perfect gift. I researched baby products, talked to other mothers about what new parents really needed, and put together what I believed was the most thoughtful present I'd ever given anyone. Christmas morning arrived, and we were all sitting around my tree opening presents. Lucas was in his little bouncy seat, fascinated by the wrapping paper. David was taking pictures of everything. Sarah seemed happy and relaxed for the first time in months. We opened all the smaller presents first: clothes, books, toys for Lucas, a nice sweater for David. Sarah seemed pleased with everything, and I was feeling good about how the morning was going. Then I brought out the big gift, the one I'd been most excited about giving her. "This one's special," I told Sarah as I handed her a large, beautifully wrapped box. I put a lot of thought into this one. Sarah opened the wrapping paper carefully, the way she'd done since she was little. When she got to the box inside, she looked confused. "Mom, what is this?" "Open it and see." Sarah opened the box, and her expression immediately changed. The happiness on her face was replaced by something I couldn't identify at first. Confusion, maybe, or disappointment. Inside the box was a breast pump. Not just any breast pump. The top-of-the-line, hospital-grade, $400 breast pump that I'd researched for weeks to make sure I was getting the best one available. "A breast pump," Sarah said flatly. "Yes, it's the Medela Symphony. It's the same, one they use in hospitals. I know you've been having trouble with breastfeeding, and I thought this might help. It has all these different settings, and Mom, you got me a breast pump for Christmas." Something in her tone made me stop talking. Sarah was staring at the breast pump like it was something offensive. "Sarah, I know it's not the most exciting gift, but I thought it would be practical. You mentioned that breastfeeding was difficult, and I read that having a good pump can make a huge difference." "Mom," Sarah interrupted, "do you have any idea how this makes me feel?" "What do you mean?" Sarah's eyes were filling with tears. "You gave me a breast pump for Christmas, a piece of baby equipment, like I'm just some kind of milk-producing machine." "Sarah, that's not what I meant at all. What else could you have meant?" "You looked at me, your daughter, and thought, what does Sarah need for Christmas? Oh, I know, something to help her be a better milk provider for her baby." I was completely confused. "Sarah, I thought you'd appreciate having good equipment to help with something that's been stressing you out." "Mom, this is supposed to be my first Christmas as a mother, my first Christmas with my son. And instead of giving me something that acknowledges me as a person, you gave me a piece of lactation equipment." David was looking back and forth between us, clearly uncomfortable. Lucas was starting to fuss, picking up on the tension in the room. "Sarah, I don't understand why you're so upset. It's a practical gift. It's something you need." "Mom, do you know what David got me for Christmas?" I shook my head. Sarah opened the box, and her expression immediately changed. The happiness on her face was replaced by something I couldn't identify at first. Confusion, maybe, or disappointment. Inside the box was a breast pump. Not just any breast pump. The top-of-the-line, hospital-grade, $400 breast pump that I'd researched for weeks to make sure I was getting the best one available. "A breast pump," Sarah said flatly. "Yes, it's the Medela Symphony. It's the same one they use in hospitals. I know you've been having trouble with breastfeeding, and I thought this might help. It has all these different settings, and Mom, you got me a breast pump for Christmas." Something in her tone made me stop talking. Sarah was staring at the breast pump like it was something offensive. "Sarah, I know it's not the most exciting gift, but I thought it would be practical. You mentioned that breastfeeding was difficult, and I read that having a good pump can make a huge difference." "Mom," Sarah interrupted, "do you have any idea how this makes me feel?" "What do you mean?" Sarah's eyes were filling with tears. "You gave me a breast pump for Christmas, a piece of baby equipment, like I'm just some kind of milk-producing machine." "Sarah, that's not what I meant at all. What else could you have meant?" You looked at me, your daughter, and thought, what does Sarah need for Christmas? Oh, I know. Something to help her be a better milk provider for her baby. I was completely confused. "Sarah, I thought you'd appreciate having good equipment to help with something that's been stressing you out." "Mom, this is supposed to be my first Christmas as a mother, my first Christmas with my son. And instead of giving me something that acknowledges me as a person, you gave me a piece of lactation equipment." David was looking back and forth between us, clearly uncomfortable. Lucas was starting to fuss, picking up on the tension in the room. "Sarah, I don't understand why you're so upset. It's a practical gift. It's something you need. Mom, do you know what David got me for Christmas? I shook my head. A necklace with Lucas's birthstone. Something beautiful and personal and meaningful. Something that celebrates me being a mother, not something that treats me like a dairy cow. Sarah, that's not fair. I wasn't treating you like... Mom, did you even consider getting me something that wasn't baby-related? Something that acknowledged that I'm still a person with interests and needs beyond taking care of an infant? I was starting to get defensive. Sarah, you just had a baby 6 months ago. I thought you'd want practical gifts that would help you with motherhood. I wanted a Christmas gift, Mom. I wanted something that showed you still see me as your daughter, not just as Lucas's milk source. The argument escalated from there. Sarah was crying, saying that the breast pump was the most insulting gift she'd ever received, that it proved I only saw her as a baby care machine, that I didn't understand or respect her as a person. I was trying to explain that I'd meant it as a helpful, practical gift, that I'd spent a lot of money on the best pump available, that I was trying to support her through a difficult time. But nothing I said made it better. Sarah became more and more upset, until finally she said something that I'll never forget. Mom, this gift tells me everything I need to know about how you see me now. I'm not your daughter anymore. I'm just the person who takes care of your grandson. And if that's all I am to you, then maybe we don't need to have a relationship anymore. Sarah, you're being ridiculous. It's just a gift. I was trying to help. If you think this is just a gift, then you understand even less than I thought. Sarah and David packed up their things and left that afternoon. Lucas's first Christmas was cut short because of a breast pump. I thought Sarah would calm down in a few days, and we'd be able to talk about it rationally. I thought she'd realize that I'd meant well, even if the gift hadn't been what she wanted. But days turned into weeks, and Sarah wouldn't return my calls. I sent her apology letters, explaining that I'd never meant to insult her, that I genuinely thought the breast pump would be helpful. I tried to explain my reasoning, my research, my good intentions. Sarah sent back one text message. Mom, if you can't understand why giving your daughter a breast pump for Christmas was hurtful, then we don't have anything to talk about. That was 7 years ago. 7 years of birthday cards returned unopened. 7 years of Christmas gifts sent back to me. 7 years of missed milestones in my grandson's life. Lucas is 7 years old now, and I've never had a real conversation with him. I've never taken him to the park or read him bedtime stories or been present for any of the moments that grandmothers treasure. Sarah moved across the country 2 years after our fight. Partly for David's medical career, but partly, I suspect, to make sure there was no chance of accidentally running into me. I've spent 7 years replaying that Christmas morning, trying to understand what I did wrong. I've talked to friends, therapists, anyone who would listen, trying to figure out how a breast pump could cause such a catastrophic rift in our family. Some people told me Sarah was overreacting, that new mothers are hormonal and sensitive. Others suggested that maybe there was more going on in Sarah's life that I didn't know about, and the breast pump was just the final straw. But I never stopped feeling like I was missing something important, like there was some crucial piece of information that would make Sarah's reaction make sense. 2 months ago, I found out what that missing piece was. I'd been cleaning out my house, getting ready to move to a smaller place. At 61, I was tired of maintaining a big house by myself, and every room held memories of Sarah and Lucas that were becoming too painful to live with. I was going through the attic, sorting through boxes of old papers and belongings, when I came across a container I hadn't opened in years. It was labeled Sarah's Things, and contained items from her childhood and teenage years that I'd saved. As I was going through the box, I found Sarah's old diary from when she was 17, the year after her father died. I almost put it aside without reading it, but something made me flip through a few pages. What I read there changed everything. I thought I knew about my daughter, and about that Christmas morning 7 years ago. The diary entry was dated December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, the year Sarah was 17. It read, "I know Mom is trying her best, but sometimes I feel like she doesn't see me anymore. Ever since Dad died, it's like she only sees me as this fragile thing that needs to be taken care of, not as a person with my own thoughts and feelings. For Christmas this year, she got me a bunch of practical things: warm clothes, school supplies, a planner. I know she's trying to be helpful, but I just wish she'd gotten me something that showed she still sees me as Sarah, not just as the daughter who needs taking care of. I miss the Christmases when Dad was alive, when they'd give me books and art supplies and things that were about my interests, not about what they thought I needed. I know Mom loves me, but I feel like she's forgotten who I am outside of being her daughter who lost her father." I sat in my attic reading this 17-year-old diary entry, and suddenly Sarah's reaction to the breast pump made complete sense. This wasn't about the breast pump at all. This was about a pattern that had started when Sarah was 17, and I was trying to take care of her after her father's death. Even back then, Sarah had felt like I saw her only in terms of her needs and circumstances, not as a complete person, with interests and desires beyond her immediate situation. And then, 11 years later, when Sarah was struggling with new motherhood and I gave her a breast pump for Christmas, it must have felt like history repeating itself. Like once again, I was reducing her to her circumstances instead of seeing her as a whole person. But there was more in that diary that broke my heart. I know Mom gave me practical gifts because money is tight now that Dad's gone. I know she can't afford to buy me the art supplies and books I really want. I feel guilty for even wanting those things when I know she's working so hard just to keep us afloat. But I just wish there was some way she could give me something that was about who I am, not about what I need. As I kept reading through Sarah's teenage diary, I found entry after entry expressing the same sentiment. She understood that I was doing my best under difficult circumstances, but she felt like I'd stopped seeing her as an individual person and started seeing her only as a collection of problems to solve. And then I found the entry that made me start crying. I found the Christmas gift Mom originally bought for me before she returned it. It was this beautiful set of watercolor paints and a sketchbook. I saw the receipt in her purse when she was looking for something else. She must have decided it was too impractical and got me the warm clothes instead. I wish I could tell her that I would have loved the art supplies, even if they weren't practical. I wish I could tell her that sometimes being seen as an artist matters more than being taken care of. But I know she's sacrificing everything for me right now, so I can't complain about practical gifts. I put down the diary and started sobbing. For 11 years after her father's death, I'd been trying so hard to take care of Sarah's practical needs that I'd stopped paying attention to her emotional needs. I'd been so focused on being a responsible single mother that I'd forgotten to be the mother who celebrated Sarah's dreams and interests. And then, when Sarah was 28 and struggling with new motherhood, I'd made the exact same mistake. I'd seen a problem to solve, breastfeeding difficulties, instead of seeing my daughter as a whole person who might want to be celebrated and acknowledged as more than just a new mother. The breast pump wasn't insulting because it was practical. It was insulting because it was the latest in a decade-long pattern of me reducing Sarah to her circumstances instead of honoring her as a complete person. But there was still more for me to discover in that attic. In another box, I found something that would explain why that Christmas gift had been even more hurtful than I'd realized. It was a box of Sarah's college papers and art projects that I'd saved. As I went through them, I found an essay she'd written for a psychology class about the challenges of early motherhood. In the essay, Sarah had written about feeling like new mothers are often reduced to their biological functions in ways that men never are. She wrote about how society tends to see new mothers as baby machines, rather than complex individuals, and how this societal attitude can make women feel like they lose their identity when they become mothers. The essay was brilliant, insightful, and clearly something Sarah had cared deeply about. She'd gotten an A+ on it, and there was a note from her professor encouraging her to consider graduate school in psychology. Reading this essay, I realized that when I gave Sarah a breast pump, for Christmas I wasn't just giving her a practical gift. I was inadvertently reinforcing the exact societal attitude that she'd been critically analyzing and writing about. To Sarah, that breast pump represented everything she'd been fighting against. The reduction of new mothers to their biological functions, the assumption that a woman's value lies primarily in her ability to care for others, the erasure of her individual identity in favor of her role as a mother. No wonder she'd been so devastated. I hadn't just given her an unwanted gift. I'd given her proof that even her own mother saw her primarily as a milk-producing machine, rather than as the complex, intelligent, artistic person she was. But I still wasn't done discovering things in that attic. In the very last box, I found something that broke my heart all over again. A letter Sarah had written to me but never sent, dated January 15th, 2018, 3 weeks after our Christmas fight. The letter read, "Dear Mom, I've been trying to figure out how to explain why the breast pump hurt me so much, and I think I finally understand it. It's not that I don't appreciate practical gifts. It's that I feel like you haven't seen me as a whole person since Dad died. Ever since then, you've been taking care of my problems instead of celebrating who I am. I know you love me, and I know you were trying to help with the breast pump, but Mom, I needed you to see me as Sarah, not just as Sarah who's having trouble breastfeeding. I needed a Christmas gift that acknowledged that I'm still an artist, still a dreamer, still the daughter who loves books and music and beautiful things. I needed you to celebrate me becoming a mother, not just help me be more efficient at it. I don't know how to explain this without hurting your feelings, so I'm writing this letter that I'll probably never send. I love you, Mom. I just wish you could see all of me, not just the parts that need fixing." I sat in my attic holding this unsent letter, crying for my daughter and for all the years we'd lost because of a misunderstanding that could have been resolved with one honest conversation. Sarah had never sent the letter because she was trying to protect my feelings. She was trying to avoid hurting me by explaining why my gift had hurt her. So instead, she'd chosen silence, and that silence had turned into 7 years of estrangement. But now I understood. I understood everything. I immediately called Sarah. I hadn't tried calling her in over 2 years, because she'd made it clear she didn't want contact with me, but now I had to try. To my surprise, she answered, "Mom?" She sounded shocked to hear from me. "Sarah, I found something in the attic that I need to talk to you about. Can I please see you? It's important." "Mom, I don't think that's a good idea. We've been through all this. Sarah, please. I found your diary from when you were 17, and the letter you wrote to me but never sent, and your college essay about motherhood. I understand now. I understand everything." There was a long silence on the phone. "You found the letter?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes. And Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry it took me 7 years to understand what I did wrong. I'm sorry I made you feel like I only saw you as problems to solve instead of as the amazing person you are. I'm sorry I gave you a breast pump when what you needed was acknowledgement and celebration." Sarah started crying on the phone. "Mom, I wrote that letter so many times in my head over the years. I wanted to explain, but I didn't know how. Sarah, can I come see you? Can we talk in person? I have so much I need to say to you. Mom, I live in Oregon now. That's a long way from Iowa. I don't care if you live on the moon. I need to see my daughter and meet my grandson properly." There was another long silence. Then Sarah said, "Okay, come visit. But Mom, I need you to know that Lucas doesn't really know you. This is going to be complicated. I know, sweetheart. I know we have a lot of ground to cover, but I want to try." 2 weeks later, I flew to Oregon to see Sarah and Lucas for the first time in 7 years. The reunion was awkward at first. Lucas, now 7 years old, was shy and cautious around me. Sarah was nervous, and I was overwhelmed by how much my daughter had changed in 7 years. But we talked. We talked for hours, working through 7 years of hurt and misunderstanding. Explained to Sarah that after her father died, I'd been so focused on keeping our family afloat financially and emotionally that I'd lost sight of who she was as an individual person. I'd started seeing her primarily through the lens of what she needed, rather than who she was. Sarah explained that she'd never doubted my love, but that she'd felt invisible as a person. She said that the breast pump had been the final straw in a pattern that had made her feel like her identity didn't matter to me. "Mom," she said, "when you gave me that breast pump, it felt like you were saying, your job is to feed the baby, and my job is to help you do that job better. It didn't feel like you were saying, you're my daughter, and I love you, and I want to celebrate this new chapter in your life." "I understand that now," I told her. "And Sarah, I want you to know that I've always seen you as brilliant and creative and wonderful. I just lost sight of how to show you that." We spent a week together, and by the end of it, Lucas was calling me Grandma and asking if I could come back soon. Sarah and I had started to rebuild the foundation of our relationship. But the most healing moment came on my last day there. Sarah handed me a wrapped present. "I want to give you something," she said. Inside the wrapping paper was a beautiful framed photo of Lucas, but it wasn't just any photo. It was a photo that Sarah had taken and edited herself, turned into a work of art using the photography and digital art skills she'd developed over the years. "Sarah, this is incredible. You made this?" "I've been working as a freelance photographer and digital artist for the past 3 years," she said. "I never told you because we weren't speaking, but I finally found a way to make money doing something creative. This is beautiful. You're so talented. Mom, I wanted to give you this to show you who I am now. I'm Lucas's mom, yes, but I'm also an artist. I'm David's wife, but I'm also a business owner. I'm your daughter, but I'm also my own person, with my own dreams and accomplishments. I see that now," I said, "and I'm so proud of you, not just for being a good mother, but for being who you are. That's all I ever wanted, Mom. I just wanted you to see all of me." That was 2 months ago. Sarah and I now talk on the phone every week. I'm planning to spend Christmas with them this year, Lucas's 8th Christmas, and my first real Christmas with my grandson. I'm also planning to give Sarah a Christmas gift that I hope will show her that I finally understand what she needed. All those years ago, I've commissioned a custom easel for her art studio, engraved with the words, "For Sarah, artist, mother, daughter, dreamer." It's not practical. It's not about solving a problem. It's about celebrating who she is as a complete person. But more than that, I've learned something important about love and family and the gifts we give each other. Sometimes the most important gift you can give someone isn't something that helps them do their job better. Sometimes the most important gift is acknowledgement of who they are beyond their roles and responsibilities. Sarah never needed me to help her be a more efficient mother. She needed me to celebrate her as a person who happened to also be a mother. For 7 years, I thought Sarah had overreacted to a practical Christmas gift. Now I understand that she wasn't reacting to the breast pump at all. She was reacting to a decade-long pattern of being seen as a collection of problems to solve, rather than as a whole person worthy of celebration. The tragedy is that this was all a misunderstanding. I never stopped seeing Sarah as brilliant and creative and wonderful. I just stopped knowing how to show her that I saw those things, and Sarah never stopped loving me or wanting a relationship with me. She just needed me to acknowledge her full humanity, instead of reducing her to her circumstances. Have you ever given someone a gift that was completely misunderstood? Have you ever felt like the people you love only see you in terms of your problems or your roles, rather than seeing you as a complete person? The story I've told you today could have been prevented with one honest conversation. If Sarah had felt safe explaining why the breast pump hurt her feelings, if I had been open to understanding her perspective instead of defending my intentions, We could have resolved this misunderstanding in a few hours instead of losing 7 years. But we're human beings, and human beings are complicated. We make assumptions about other people's motivations. We misinterpret each other's actions. We let pride and hurt feelings prevent us from having the conversations that could save our relationships. Sarah and I are lucky. We found our way back to each other because I happened to stumble across her old diary and letter in my attic. But how many families aren't that lucky? How many people are living with years of estrangement because of misunderstandings that could be resolved if someone was just willing to take the first step toward honest communication? If you're watching this and you have a broken relationship in your life, with a child, a parent, a sibling, anyone who matters to you, I want you to consider that there might be more to the story than you know. Consider that the person who hurt you might not have intended to hurt you. Consider that your actions might have been misinterpreted in ways you never imagined. Consider that the gift you thought was thoughtful might have sent a message you never intended to send. Most importantly, consider that it's never too late to have the honest conversation that could heal your family. Sarah and I lost 7 years because we were both too proud and too hurt to explain our perspectives to each other. 7 years of missed birthdays, missed holidays, missed moments with my grandson. 7 years that we can never get back. But we have the rest of our lives to build something better. We have the chance to create a relationship based on understanding instead of assumptions, on honest communication instead of hurt silence. And this Christmas, when I give Sarah that engraved easel, I'll also be giving her something else. A promise that I will always strive to see her as the complete, complex, wonderful person she is, not just as my daughter with problems to solve. Because that's what love really is, isn't it? Seeing someone fully, celebrating who they are, and never reducing them to their roles or their circumstances. That's the gift we all deserve to give and receive. And it's a gift that doesn't cost $400, doesn't require research or shopping, and will never be the wrong size or the wrong color. It's the gift of being truly seen by the people we love, and it's the most valuable present any of us could ever give or receive. If this story made you think about someone in your life who might feel unseen or misunderstood, if it reminded you of gifts you've given or received that were misinterpreted, if it made you consider reaching out to someone you've lost touch with, I hope you'll take action. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of honest communication and second chances. Leave a comment telling me about a time when a misunderstanding damaged a relationship in your life. And consider making that phone call, sending that letter, or having that conversation you've been avoiding. Subscribe if stories about family healing and the power of understanding matter to you. Your support helps me share more stories like this one. Remember, sometimes the most thoughtless-seeming gifts are actually the most thoughtful, and sometimes the most thoughtful gifts seem thoughtless because we don't understand the full story. But with honest communication and a willingness to see each other fully, we can bridge any misunderstanding and rebuild any relationship. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for caring about families that get broken by misunderstandings, and the people who work to put them back together with love and truth. It's never too late to start seeing each other fully. It's never too late to give the gift of true understanding.